Wayne Alaroot with Chris Ruddy, the CEO, the founder and CEO of Newsmax Media. You know what that makes him? The boss. I just call him the Godfather. Mr. Ruddy, how are you?
Great to be on with you, Wayne. I won't comment on that. I'll just say I'm just a regular guy, a regular guy like you.
A regular guy who happens to hang out from time to time with the President of the United States.
Well,
How
that's
is President
easy
Trump
because
doing? Are his spirits up?
I was going to say that's easy because he's a regular guy, as you know, and a good guy.
That is correct. A blue-collar president, as they say. So tell me about his spirits. First of all, you do spend some time, whether it's in person or on the phone with the president. I assume his spirits are up, but he's relishing the fight?
I spoke to him last week by phone. We had a nice conversation. He was in New York. I was in New York. And he had given that speech at the UN, so it was the day after. It was on Wednesday. He was in a good mood. And we chatted about this Zelensky thing and the phone call. And, you know, his point was, which he said, you know, the conversation, he didn't do anything wrong in that conversation. People need to look back when 48 hours before I spoke with the president, when the story first broke, they said a whistleblower claimed that the president was on the call with the president of the Ukraine and said, either you give me an investigation of Joe Biden or I'm going to hold the military aid up. That was the story. The president released that transcript. It showed that had not ever happened. The president did not threaten the president of the Ukraine.
So I've got two issues with this whole thing, and I want to get your take on it. Number one is that until a matter of like a month ago or a couple of weeks ago, you had to be on the line and hear the call to be a whistleblower, or be in the room and hear the conversation to be the whistleblower. And evidently the CIA changed the definition of whistleblower just in the month of August, I believe. So it was just a month ago they changed the definition to include you heard it from someone who was in the room, which I think is a setup. It sounds like a total setup by people out to get this president. That never happened to any other president. Let's get your take.
Well, I'm not a conspiracy guy, but let's just say this is not a typical whistleblower claim, right? Usually it is direct knowledge. Now, the Inspector General, who is the guy that looked at this, says that he does fit the definition and that he had other general information that was more specific. That's fine. I think that, you know, there are whistleblowers all the time in government that say and make claims. Pass on their information, handle it properly. Why did Nancy Pelosi announce an impeachment against the President of the United States? This is a very historic thing. It's actually very damaging to the country to have this happen. I think when the Republicans did it, we made a big mistake in the 90s going after Bill Clinton, actually. Not sure you agree with that,
Agreed.
but I think it was a mistake and it backfired. Clinton only became more powerful and popular. The Democrats did even better. And looking back, I don't think Clinton was as bad as people made him out to be. I think the Democrats are going to look back and think Trump wasn't as bad as we thought, but we started this impeachment. Why? Why did they do it? Not because they had any evidence. They hadn't seen the transcript at that point. They hadn't even gotten the whistleblower complaint. They weren't even going to wait for the evidence. So they wanted to make this because they know there's a year to the election and every poll has the president very close to defeating the Democrat. And they just can't accept that. And they know how good he is on the campaign. So they just figure they have to take it's a political act, is my view.
Yeah, well, the president calls it a witch hunt. I would classify it as that because you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Kavanaugh. They did the same thing to Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. They convicted before there was ever evidence or proof or witnesses or testimony or a trial. They made him out to be guilty, and once he was proven innocent, they still claimed he was guilty, and they tried to do it again. And it seems like they're doing the same thing to Trump without evidence.
Yeah, it's sort of like everything's become so highly politicized right now. I actually in favor of congressional oversight by the Democrats or Republicans, whoever's in power. I think it's good for the country. And I think that the administration, the White House, made a mistake not complying with a lot of congressional subpoenas. And I understand why that came about. They were highly politicized on the subpoena front. They should have objected to very certain subpoenas that related to executive privilege, but not every single one of them. But remember, this was a president that complied with the Mueller investigation. He waived executive privilege on everything. and which is just unheard of. It was astounding when that happened, but his attitude was, well, I've done nothing wrong. Let me show them the evidence and we'll end this quickly. Well, it took 2 years, 500 witnesses, and they still claimed he was obstructing justice. So I can understand his psyche on this. I think he's getting really bad legal advice and has gotten some bad legal advice. Rudy Giuliani, I think, is a great man, has been a great mayor, but I'm not sure getting the president involved in things in the Ukraine in 2016 was a particularly smart political or legal move for him.
Right, but I did see an article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, an editorial actually by Stephen Moore. And Stephen Moore, who's a brilliant economist, pointed out that Trump's numbers for the middle class, as far as rising incomes, 4 times higher than Obama's. So, I mean, if I was Trump, and I want to get your take on this, Chris, if I was Trump, I wouldn't bother with tweeting out how terrible the opposition is and how terrible the witch hunt is. I would just keep throwing those numbers in their face. I'm a great president. I'm a great economic president. I'm a great president for the middle class, and they're trying to distract you, and this is their way of throwing you off the case. I'm great for the middle class.
Wayne,
that's the point I'd make if I was him.
Wayne, you're exactly right. I think the Democrats are trying to get everyone off keep your eye on the birdie. The birdie is the economy, and the president has this astounding record. And
right.
If the Federal Reserve had not raised interest rates 8 times since he was elected, for no reason, because they're only supposed to do it when there's an inflation scenario, there's been no hint of inflation.
Correct.
I think the GDP would have been at 4%. And I know the president agrees with me because we've talked about that issue. So I think there's been an effort by people that don't like him to sort of pinch the economy. The Democrats don't want to talk about the economic story. It's such a great story. But I think the president should keep the rhetoric high, should not play into the Democrat. Oftentimes, you go back in the history of this, usually some Democrat will say something really nasty about him. Robert De Niro this weekend was on CNN. He came on right after I was.
Terrible.
He attacked me. I don't even know the man. And then he started using the F word against the president and Fox News.
Unbelievable.
And they were, in the segment before, Brian Stelter was attacking me for what the president had said in tweets. And he said, well, why don't you criticize him? And now he had Robert De Niro doing even worse, and he wouldn't say a word to him really about it. So, I mean, this is what this is about. It's a highly political thing. I get it. But I think there's really important things for the country, and I don't think they should have pulled the impeachment trigger. I think it's not good event, for all of us. As you know, we're all Americans. We're in this boat together.
Agreed. Agreed. I think they blew it. And I agreed to their first statement when you started this interview. What we did to Bill Clinton as Republicans was a giant mistake in the 1990s, and it led to him becoming one of the most popular presidents in history and gaining seats and winning popularity and good news for the Democratic Party. I think the exact same thing is about to happen to Trump and the Republican Party. Democrats have overplayed their hands. Chris, we're out of time. We got to run. But I want to thank you for coming on,
Thank
Chris
you,
Ruddy.
Wayne. Always great to be on with
Founder
you.
and CEO of Newsmax Media.
Great to be on
My
with you.
boss. Thanks, Chris.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for breaking news and give us a thumbs up. If you like this video, then share it with your friends. Remember, you can watch Newsmax TV live on YouTube. Newsmax TV, real news for real people.